I used a 4-yard silk fabric, a zipper, a short zipper, but I couldn't get the color to match the fabric. Also the thread, yeah, I searched all stores around me and I couldn't get the color to match the fabric. It was so hard, like I don't know why I couldn't get the color. Likewise for the button, I couldn't get a color to match the fabric, so I had to do with this one, something similar, something close to the color. In order to manage my fabric, I had to place my pattern pieces one after the other and cut. So for the space for the pleats, I used 3 inches. So it all depends on how full you want your pleat. I cut out one side of my zipper fly. So this depends on where you want your zipper fly. If you want to zipper fly on the right side, you have to cut it out on the left side like I did. I changed the design of the shirt a little bit by leaving 3 inch at the bottom and cutting it to the side like a curve, just like so. Yeah, this is all that is left of my fabric to color the bralette, so I'm just going to do a good job at managing this fabric. So it's going to be a 3rd-part video. I'm going to post the video on the bralette, so watch out for that. So everything is cut and ready to sew. The first thing I did was to lock the edges all the way to the crotch. Also the shield, I cut out the shield. The top is 2 inches, the bottom is 1.5 inches, plus the stitch allowance, same as the fly facing. You can see that I notched my fly facing. I just locked all the edges. Once this is done, it's time to create my zipper fly. You have to really pay attention to this. I placed my zipper the right side facing the right side of my fabric using the notch as a guide and pin on the other side. So I sewed a little bit close to the edge, not on the edge, just a little bit close to the edge. Next, I place the zipper shield on the zipper in such a way that I can turn it over and sew just the zipper and the zipper fly. Next, it's time to attach the left piece. I just flipped the right piece side to the side, exposing the zipper so I can align that. I also marked my seam allowance. Also, I had to loosen this after sewing in order for me to lock the crotch, the edge of the crotch. So do that before sewing. To properly align my 2 pieces, well, I marked the top of the zipper, so I have like to place them well. There are 2 ways you can sew the left piece to the zipper. You can either fold it and sew close to the edge just like so, or you can just flip it like this, place it, use a zipper foot, yes, and sew close to the zipper teeth. So I changed to a zipper foot so I can sew close to the teeth. No pressure here. If it's the first time sewing a zipper fly, you don't have to be perfect on first day. Like, I'm still learning this thing. Next, I folded the left piece over using the notch as a guide just to lap that a bit, covering the zipper, and I pinned to make it stable, to secure it together. This is just to pin it in place to be able to sew the crotch together. I tried as much as possible to stitch to get to that stitch line right there. So I sewed really slowly. As you can see, I was able to get close to it. Next, I hand stitched to get my zipper fly design. While sewing, I moved the fly shield out of the way just to get just the bottom part of the shield. So you have to pin the fly shield out of the way while sewing the design, and I just got the bottom part, which I later loosened, so we'll get to that later. So I try as much as possible to get the curve of the fly. I didn't get the curve I wanted, so I had to loosen the stitch and try again. And besides, this is a silk, so I don't want the fabric to look really rough, but I just have to do this. Next, I closed my pleat. I already marked out my pleat point, so you can decide which side you want your pleat to face. So you can just close the pleat and see which side you prefer. You can either use a pin or hand stitch to hold the pleat. Next is to sew the pockets. I placed the pocket on the pants, on the front pants, right sides together, and stitch. I also did a top stitch. Next, I sewed the bottom of the pocket and overlock. Next, I align the pockets to the pants and pin, and later I hand stitched. One more adjustment to the zipper. So I'm just going to lose the zipper shield I don't like the way I sewed it, and it looks bulky outside. So I'm just going to loosen it and attach it to the zipper fly. So this is it right here. I'm just gonna do little adjustment. It looks good. This is my second time making a zipper fly. I make pants without zipper fly. It just is invisible zipper. And the fabric, yeah, I really like this fabric. It doesn't fray as much as it's satin, but this fabric slithers. It slithers, like it just slides off my hand easily. And I have to pin, like I have to pin often. I just can't sew without pinning, so it's not like a cotton. So I'm just gonna make the adjustment and call it a day. Sleep, eat, sleep, and continue tomorrow. It's not a die affair actually. So I just want something like this in my wardrobe. So it's not like I'm gonna kill myself and finish it in a day or 2 days or 3 days. So yeah. Next, I pinned the back crotch right sides together, sewed, then locked. I pinned the back pants that, then sew. After sewing the darts, I pressed. So now it's time to attach the front piece to the back piece. I started by pinning the inseam from the crotch side, then the outseam, then sew and lock. I tried my pants on to see if there were any adjustments to be made, but from the look of it, it's just the length of the pants. So I'm just gonna cut it a bit, which is the length, and before hemming, then attach the waistband. I think that is basically it. Next, I trimmed the length by 1 inch, fold, then hem. After hemming, I pressed, so it's time for the waistband. Like I said when drafting the pants pattern, you can either trace your front and back waistband on a fresh pattern paper and add 2 inches for the fly shield, then another inch, a half an inch for if you want it to come out, if you want your band to come out a bit to add more hook or button to it, you can do that. Now I placed my waistband on the waist. I left half an inch for my sewing allowance and pin round to the other side. Another alternative to getting your waistband is to measure your waist after trying on your trouser and cut a band for it. So you can just try that and see if it works too. So now I sewed the waistband to the waist. On the fly sheet side, I turned over the waistband, the right sides together, then sewed the 1 inch allowance, leaving a half inch allowance just to get that waistband outside, just to get like the outlook waistband. So you can see the little space left. So we're going to close that later. Why for this fly shield side I pinned and sew the half inch. I turned it over and then sew the half inch. Be careful while sewing this part so you don't sew on the fly shield, because if you do you have to rip the stitches and sew again. So just sew slowly so you don't pick the fly shield. Now it's time to cover the waistband at the back, but then sew in front on exactly on the same line right there, just right on the same line. So this is called a stitch in the ditch. In order to achieve the stitch in the ditch, I had to pin on the same line in such a way that it holds the back close, just like so. Before sewing on the same line, I have to cover the half inch opening that I have close to the zipper fly. So I'm just going to stitch at the top there. Next, I sewed on the same line. I sewed this part really slow so I get right on the same line. So it came out really well, though I still wish I had the fabric color thread. I used a skirt fastener to finish the look. It's time to sew the shirt. For the shirt, I placed the front and back piece right sides together and sewed the shoulder. Next, it's time to prepare my sleeve. I'm using a cuff, so I've already made the band and the placket. For the small placket, I cut out 1.5 inches, folded and pressed to get half an inch in total. While for the big placket, I cut out 3 inches, folded it to get 1 inch in total. I've made a sleeve with cuff before, so I'm just going to put the video on the screen for you to check that out. I folded the sleeves just like so. This is for me to get the point where to attach the placket. So from the folded side, I went in 4.5 inches and marked that, and I went up 4 inches. I marked that. Then I ruled a line connecting this point. After ruling this line, I created this triangle shape just where to stop sewing the placket and cut. So it's just like a triangle shape to guide me on where to stop sewing the placket and where to cut. I removed some of the pin in order for me to attach the placket. I placed the half-inch placket on the out seam just like so, and pin. I placed it on the line and pin all the way to the end of the point. Then I did for the 1-inch placket, I did the same thing, pin and so just watch closely. Next, I cut out the straight line and the triangle shape to the end of the placket stitch, not close to the stitch so you don't rip out the stitch. Then I turned the placket, the small one first, I turned it to the front and fold and sew. Next, I trimmed the bottom of the placket. I placed the big placket over the small placket and pinned just to keep it in place. Next, I moved the small placket to the back while the big placket stays in front to create whatever design you want. For the small placket, I just hemmed at the top. I didn't know what to do with this actually. So this was not like a great job, but I just did whatever could be done just to get this overweight. So I'm just going to recreate this look on a cotton fabric to see how it looks at the end. So for the placket, the front placket, I folded the tip just a bit and created a triangle or square design. Nothing fancy, I just want to get this over and done with. So the next step is to create the pleats, the sleeve pleats. So I pinned the placket together. I marked up my seam allowance. I created the pleats, having in mind that the width of the sleeve does not exceed the band that I've already created for the sleeve. I had to measure this to be sure. Next, I sewed the side seam halfway. The width of the band is 9 inches, while the length is 4 inches. That's including the seam allowance. So I used a paper interfacing to make the band a little bit thick. So I pinned and sewed to cover the two sides. After which I trimmed and turned over. Next is to attach the band to the sleeve. I pinned the band round the sleeve. Then sew. Next, I trim the excess a little bit. I folded the band. I did a stitch in the ditch here. I seamed on the outside seam line, just directly on the seam line, in such a way that I still get the back seam. Before attaching the sleeves, I locked both the front and back side seams. I already notched the center of my sleeve, so I placed my sleeve, the notched part, on the seam of the shoulder, right side together. Next, I pinned from the sleeve down to the length of the shirt, leaving 4 inches space for the side slits. It's time to sew the concealed buttonhole band. Here is a preview of what I did or how I folded the band to achieve the concealed button band. This is a silk fabric, like I have been saying, so it's just really hard for me to pin this way and sew straight away. So what I did after just showing you is I took it to my pressing table and pressed step by step in order to achieve the concealed band look. So just watch and you see what I did. You can see that I folded it to the notch part, so I didn't exceed the allowance I left for the band. Don't forget that I left 5 inches for the concealed buttonhole band, while for the button band I left 2.5 inches. So this one I made concealed, as the 5 inches, while the other one, that's the 2.5 inches, just folded it one way in, and that's all. the side slit, I just folded it in using the seam allowance and stitch on top. As you can see, I've already locked the bottom of the shirt. I'm trying to avoid folding it twice because of the curve, so I just locked it in order for me to fold it once and sew. Next, I attached my shirt collar. So I have a video on how to create a shirt collar, how to draft and sew a shirt collar, so you should watch that. I use the same step. I've been using the same step. So I created my buttonhole using my buttonhole footer, and so my buttons, and that is all. That is it for the shirt. So I'm going to post immediately, I'm going to post the bralette video, so you can check that out too if you're interested in making a bralette for your shirt and your pants. All right, ciao.